You're listening to STP Radio. Welcome back to STP Radio. I'm your host, Mike Lyles, and I'm excited to conduct an interview with one of our upcoming speakers at our Spring 2017 STPCon conference. In case you've not signed up yet, STPCon will be in Phoenix, Arizona from March the 14th through the 17th this year. And if you reach out to me, I can share with you a discount code that will save you on your registration. Be sure to check out www.stpcon.com, where you can learn more about the conference, the speakers, our special events, and our conference pricing. And you can also follow us on Twitter and Instagram, where we are there at Software Test Pro on both of those social networks. So let's meet our guest for today. Today we have Pradeepa Narayanaswamy. Pradeepa is an enterprise Agile coach and a professional Scrum trainer. She is self-proclaimed Agile passionista who strongly believes in Agile values and principles. In her current role, Pradeepa works as a trainer, an Agile coach, and a mentor to several software teams and help them succeed in delighting customers. She works with leadership teams in their transformational journey using Agile values and principles. She is passionate about and specializes in Agile testing, and she has spoken at various national and international conferences. Pradeepa, it is great to have you with us. Welcome to STP Radio.
Thank you, Mike. It's my pleasure.
So tell us a little bit about you, how you got into testing, and a little bit about your background.
So I actually started as a Java developer way back when in 1999. That was in India. And actually after that, I moved to United States, got married, came back here. And then I was working a little bit in web designing and web development. That's when I realized I was very interested in the quality side of the product that I was working on, quality side of the code that I was working on. So I had a great opportunity to help testing in one of the projects, and I was really, really liking it. That's when I realized, hey, this is what I wanted to do, and this is where I wanted to concentrate. You know, I was given the opportunity, great company, and, there you go, I became a software tester. I was doing that for a little bit, and that's when I got introduced to agility. That was in 2006, to be specific, in Minneapolis with Wells Fargo. And I was attending an Agile boot camp, and that was my first ever exposure to agility. Just by hearing the values and principles and the concepts that were being taught at that time, my eyes were growing like really big. If you've seen me, I have really big eyes, and my eyes were growing even bigger. My God, this is awesome. Why did I not know about this earlier? That's what was going on in my mind. To be honest with you, the first project that I ever tried to work in an Agile environment, it was a great success. And to me, and I was part of the team. I was a test specialist in that team. So I know that doing it correctly and doing it with a good team where everyone is brought in with the right support, you can absolutely do it an absolute best job. And this worked. And for me, that was the great proof. And ever since then, there is no turning back for me. After that, I had a lot of ups and downs, a lot of learning experiences, things you should do, things you shouldn't do, and things like that. But my first experience, I always cherish, I always treasure that, because that was my motivation to stick with agility.
That's beautiful. Well, at the time of this interview, we were approaching the playoffs for the National Football League, and I personally will admit to you that I'm a Pittsburgh Steelers fan, so I'm very happy to have one of the four teams in the playoffs, the last four being my team. But I find out that you are a cheesehead.
Yes.
So can you tell the audience what a cheesehead is and how you became a cheesehead?
Okay, cheesehead is a term that's typically given for a Green Bay Packers fan, because Green Bay is in Wisconsin, and Wisconsin is very popular for cheese. There's the name for that. I used to live in Green Bay, believe it or not, within 5 miles of the stadium. Wow. At that time, football was so brand new to me. At the time, Brett Favre was the quarterback. And everywhere you go, anyone you talk to, everybody talked about Green Bay Packers. So whether we liked it or not, we had to know the game. We had to understand what football meant. And
Yeah.
first ever game I saw, Packers, I still remember that Packers were playing Atlanta Falcons, and the Packers won pretty big that day. And I was like, wow, this is awesome. And I'm going to support this team just because I'm living here. So I started as a joke, and I became a serious fan. Yeah,
That it's an addictive sport. I can tell you that.
it is.
I've lost many hours of sleep.
It is.
Uh,
It is. And I'm
now,
over the moon with the last weekend game with Dallas Cowboys and Packers. It was nail biting. It was phenomenal. I nearly had a heart attack.
well, it's so true. So, being that you know about football and how a cohesive team works together, and you saw that if you know football, there's a team called the Cleveland Browns that did not have that great of a year. I think they won one game. And when I watch that team play, what I notice is it's not about the players. The players aren't. It isn't that the players aren't good. I mean, any of those guys could take me out in a one-on-one match, but it's the cohesiveness of the team and how the team works together. Without that cohesiveness, you're not going to see a successful team. That's usually what I'm seeing in football is if they don't work together well and they don't speak the same language, so to speak, it's not going to be a successful year for that team. So, can you relate the role of a football team and how teams work together with how teams work together and experience testing with Agile?
Absolutely. That's a fantastic leeway to the collaboration. To me, teams work together because they understand football teams because they understand what each person's strengths are and the weaknesses are, and they understand how to work with each other and bring out the best in each and every one. And that's how they keep winning the games, just like Green Bay Packers did. I just have to say that. um,
Right.
so bringing it back to software teams, we have different people with different personalities, different strengths, and obviously people come with different weaknesses. To me, it's all about how do you work together? How do you bring out the best in each and everybody? How do you collaborate so that you are bringing out the best of the quality and understanding where you are going. What's the vision? Who are we trying to solve this problem for? To me, it's not in one person's head. Each and every individual contributor as part of the team, they all need to understand the same thing. Just like a football team needs to understand what their end goal is to take some touchdowns. Same like that, a team who is doing software development, they need to understand what the bigger vision is, who their customers are, what problem are they trying to solve, and why are they solving it. To me, always start with why. Simon Sinek is one of my favorite author and a thought leader
Mine
in
too.
the industry. So I always ask, start with why. Everybody in the team should understand the why. If they all understand the why, and if they all brought into it, it becomes a team sport. It's not an individual person's competency anymore.
So true. I'm completely with you with Start With Why. I've been a big Simon Sinek fan, and it's interesting how his Start With Why has become so popular now when he kind of released that many years ago. But I do live by that, and I speak on that a lot myself. And when I'm looking at your workshop that you have coming up, there is a workshop with you called Discover the Power of Pair Testing. And I
Yes.
think this is going to be a very hot topic for the attendees to be part of. And so, can you tell us a little bit about pair testing and why it's important in our testing environments today?
Absolutely, absolutely. So this is a personal experience of mine. So I have pioneered this technique, believe it or not, with an capital A architect. And the first time we paired up, I was a test specialist in the team. I paired up with this technical guru in the team was an architect. We paired up on looking at unit testing. So that was my first ever trying. Why don't, instead of you doing the unit testing, Mr. Architect, and me verifying the code in the front end, why don't we sit together and, look at all the unit tests that you have written? And he was looking at me like funny. Why do you want to do that? Just give us 10 minutes. Let's just have the conversation. That's pretty much it. Okay. And we started talking about it. He was explaining some of the tests that he had written for a specific piece of functionality. I started questioning, even without reading the code, just by listening to him. I started questioning, have you thought about this scenario? Have you thought about that scenario? And that made, to be honest with you, he was like, wow, I never thought about that. Maybe that's a good one to capture here. And to me, that was a big, big win at that time. I know that, if I'm able to convince this highly technical person just to sit with me and have a chat and write more quality unit tests at the code level, maybe I can expand it to others. So that was my first ever experience with pair testing. So I gave the name as pair testing, and I started venturing into other areas as well. So I started working with other team members, other specialists, business analysis specialists, with a product owner. And once I started getting the rhythm, I saw the value that each and every individual brings to this perspective. To me, pair testing, it doesn't have a fancy definition. So when I go and explain this, what is pair testing? I always talk about it's two people, two brains coming together, actively discussing scenarios and coming up with, really good cases to explore. That's pretty much it. The important part underlined here is the two brains coming, thinking, and actively discussing. That's the important part. Each and every individual that I've paired up with within the team, everybody has a different perspective on what the product is, what the quality is, and what they are trying to test for. So you always get different set of test cases, always get different scenarios that you may want to explore or not. That's the power of pair testing.
Well, and I've heard it said many times from many of the leaders in the testing world is quality means something to someone, but that definition is theirs. So quality to me, or a quality product, or what looks good or what is right to me, may not look the same to you, and it may not be your goal for what is quality. And so I think having pair testing kind of combines multiple ideas on what is quality. If you've got two people working together on a task, and I think I'm catching things that you might not, or I'm thinking, like you said, I'm thinking of something that someone else may not have even thought about. And I love having that side by side relationship with folks where you're saying, hey, what if we do this? And they're like, I haven't even thought about that. That's really amazing.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I actually presented this not in the testing track for the Agile 2014, but in the collaboration track, because I put this as a pretty big collaboration tool for teams.
Very true. I can't agree more. And I think as we move into the agile environments, I think you're seeing more and more where that the teams are going to have to communicate more, because you're not going to be successful if you stay in the waterfall phases where work gets done and gets thrown over the fence, and then testing does their work. So. So speaking of communication, you didn't tell me what it was, but you mentioned your communication skills in second grade and an interesting story related to that. Can you tell us a little about that?
Yeah, absolutely. This was in second grade back in India. I was growing up in South India. So I used to travel to school in a rickshaw. I don't know. Do you know what a rickshaw is, Mike?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. All right, good. So on Saturday, we typically have a half a day school. So my rickshaw came and I went to school, and in the afternoon, I had this great idea. Remember, I was in second grade. I think I was 5 or 5.5 at that time. I went to school pretty early, so I was pretty small. I had this great idea that I wanted to spend the afternoon at my close friend's house, who lives, I believe, pretty close to the school. I think her house was walkable. So I had this great idea, and at that time, we don't have phone or anything like that. So I had to let my parents know that I'm not going to come home. So what I did was I took a note, like a paper from my notebook and my pencil, and I actually wrote a handwritten note to my dad. I still remember that. I don't know why. This is one of those weird things I remember. Dad, I'm going to Kavita's house. I will not be coming home in the rickshaw. Signed N. Pradeepa. That was my initial. That's it. And I I gave this note to another kid who is my neighbor, and asked him to give it to my parents once he reached home. And that's it. And I went home and I went to my friend's house, and that's it. What happened was that after I realized that my dad, around like 4:30 or 5-ish, my dad was panicking, and he came and he found me at my friend's home. Somehow, I didn't know all the backstory, and he found me, and I got a pretty good, I got some pretty good, I don't want to mention that in our interview. I was given some, like pretty good discipline, disciplinary action after that behavior. And my action was my dad took it forward with my principal and my vice principal, and they had a nice little chat with me as well. Enforced my behavior. Why am I bringing? So what happened was this kid who took the note from me. It was a rickshaw with open air, and it's not closed compartment. I think he flew the paper away when he was going home. So the note did not reach my dad at all. They were trying to ask the rickshaw, where is she? The rickshaw guy didn't know where I was. So he was not responsible for that or anything like that. So it was a big story. Why am I bringing that up? Because even at that age, I knew that I need to tell my parents, and I found a way to tell them, even though the communication didn't reach them. Even today, I'll think about that, and I used to smile about it.
So yeah, I think communication is key, and that brings me to your session, which is called "We Are Moving to Agile. What are our testers going to do?" And this session looks awesome. I think a lot of people can relate to this. Most organizations today say I'm doing Agile, and they may be doing a little bit of Agile, or they're trying to do it, or maybe they're just they've taken the decision to move into a complete Agile shop. But regardless of where they are, I think there's always that open, thought of how are we going to move to Agile? How's that going to affect our testing teams? How's it going to affect the development and the testing, communication and collaboration, and how are we going to handle this change? And I think this session is going to speak to some of that. So can you tell us a little bit about the session and what folks should be looking to take away from it?
Absolutely. The reason why I even talk about this topic, this is very near and dear to my heart, because as a coach, when I start coaching teams or when I go into organizations, there is always this confusion. There is always this uncertainty about testers, especially. Developers, for some reason, programmers, they get embedded into Agile teams pretty easily, and there is less of a transition for them. But for testing team, it's a different whole another story. And I have seen this in bigger organizations, medium-sized organizations over and over again. Me coming from a testing background, I wanted to address this. Hence, I even proposed this topic. That was my main reason that I'm talking about this wherever I get an opportunity. In this session, I talk about the main things that I typically talk about in this session is what does Agile testing means? Just to give you a little bit of insight into that, I talk about testing not as an activity. I talk about it as just an activity where you write test cases and execute test cases. I talk about it from the design sense. I actually say that testing in an Agile world is a design activity. And I also talk about how asynchronous the testing can be. It doesn't have to follow the development. They can be done in parallel. Those are two important things that I typically bring out when I'm explaining what agile testing is. Alongside, I also talk about, especially when people who are moving into agile environment, especially for testers or people who are supporting the testers, or even other team members, what's the mindset? Because there are a lot of things that are going to be changing, especially if they are moving from a traditional background. I address how is collaboration going to be increasing? Who wants the quality? I'm going to be talking about testers are not the only people who are the quality gatekeepers anymore. It's the responsibility of the entire team. I talk about how critical the communication is. I talk about the importance of cross-functional teams and what test specialists bring out as part of their cross-functionality. I talk about the typical metrics that are not going to be matter anymore and what typically matters in an agile environment, what kind of metrics they should be looking for. Like a whole slew of things. There are a lot of mindset changes that a lot of people need to understand. The testers, the people who are leading the testers, people who are managing the testing side of the house, people who are starting up new agile teams. There's all these people need to be on the same page. And these are some of the important things that I'm trying to bring out of this topic. Apart from that, we also talk about what are some of the different events that testers can contribute and how can they contribute. Talk about documentation. I'm going to be talking about metrics that matters in moving forward. So those are all some of the things that I will be talking in this session, Mike.
So I'm sure you've seen the great program lineup that we have for the STPCon this year.
Yes, I did.
And as you look over the keynotes, the sessions, workshops, what are some of the things that stand out to you? One of the workshop sessions or keynotes that you really interested in, and then what you are hoping that you can get to be part of at the conference.
So I'm really looking forward for a couple of sessions. One is a keynote by Jess Lancaster. And the reason why I'm looking forward to his session is we keep running into each other, including the STP Fall Conference in Dallas. And the first time that I met him was at the QA or the highway last year in Columbus. And every time we both were talking at the same time. So hopefully this time we are not. And I'm pretty thrilled. I've ended up talking with Jess in the hallway conversation. Between him and I are, like our thoughts and some of the concepts that we are believing they're aligned. So I wanted to hear his keynote. So that's one thing that I'm really looking forward at this conference. The second one is I'm actually looking to see Brandon Carlson speak. He's going to be speaking on oil and water or peanut butter and jelly. I mean, just for the topic itself, I want to go see him. Brandon and I are actually co-chairing the Agile 2017 conference this year for the coaching and mentoring track. So I wanted to, so it's pretty exciting for me. And I saw Brandon's name in the program, and I'm super excited. So I wanted to see him and his session as well.
It's interesting that you mentioned Jess Lancaster in his workshop because, like, if folks notice, we have 2 workshops on pair testing. But when we look at what you guys are presenting, we think both are equally as interesting and compelling for the audience. And for that second day of the workshops to have both of you speak, the 2 different sessions, we kept them, workshops, we kept them separate so that folks could attend both. And I think having that, someone should not be able to leave the conference without a firm understanding of what is pair testing after they've met you and Jess with your workshops. So I do have one final question for you. I know you've attended and participated in STPCon before. Both you've attended and also you've spoken at the last one. What would you like to tell the audience about the program and why they should attend?
It is a fantastic testing conference, period. Because last time when I attended, and I was truly humbled by the opportunity to speak there, I saw the enthusiasm in the participants. All of them are there not just because their company paid a bunch of money and sent them for a 2-day conference. They were there because they truly wanted to learn. I knew that because I presented a workshop and I presented a session, and it's just the audience involvement in both those. I was like truly wowed. Okay, these people are here to truly learn. They were not being forced into this conference. Because if you know, Mike, if you are a presenter, that's all you are looking for, right? I mean, you wanted people to be there to learn. You wanted people to be engaged, not just sit there and twiddle their thumbs or looking at their iPhones or their timer to see, okay, when is this going to end? And I saw people who were really interested. I saw people who really wanted to learn. I saw people who wanted to share their experiences. And I saw all of those things at the STPCon last year in Dallas. And I'm hoping to see more of that in Phoenix.
I think you made a great point. There is a lot of collaboration. There is a lot of socializing. We actually have a meet and greet reception on Wednesday night before the conference starts. It's a great way to break the ice with speakers, meet the arriving attendees that are coming for the conference. And so, Pradeepa, thank you so much for your time today. And this was a great interview. It was great having you with us. And I'm really looking forward to seeing you in Phoenix.
Thank you, Mike. I look forward to seeing you in Phoenix as well. Thank you so much for this opportunity.
Thank you. But thanks again, everyone. Thank you for listening. Please stay tuned for more episodes of STP Radio.
Thanks for listening to this episode of STP Radio, and stay tuned for more episodes. Learn more about the conference being held in Phoenix, Arizona, March 14th through 17th by visiting stpcon.com.